hello, and welcome to another episode of A Seat at the Table, hosted by yours truly, Karl Singleton. Here at A Seat at the Table, we pride ourselves on bringing our viewing audience, decision makers, or those with connections to them, to this table so that we can have robust conversation that is definitely organic and inspirational. That is never more evident than today um, in terms of being inspirational. With us today, we have Mr. Bryan King Prolifik Hickman. We know our community is facing a lot of turmoil, has been, going through a plethora of things that are making the news in a negative sense. What we wanted to do today was bring someone on who has generated so much positivity in our community that we thought it not robbery to highlight this body of work that the young man has been doing, continues to do, and just the wealth of knowledge that he possesses, not only, in terms of his mental capacity, but in terms of his artistic form as well. So, with that being said, um, Mr. Hickman, thanks for joining us.
Peace, peace. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. So, let's just jump right into it. These murals that are going up around the city,
Yes, sir.
there are, people have been doing some, and of course, you've shared with me earlier that you collaborated on one, but the most powerful ones, and I'm biased, of course, not because not only because you're here,
Yeah.
but just the Tuskegee Airmen and then the sister over on, on Third,
Yeah.
So let's just get right into it. Um, First of all, how long does something like that take, and how do you start to strategize or schedule around creating such a large image for all to see and enjoy?
Yeah. So this year was a year of fresh new experiences for me. So this was the first time I actually started doing murals at all. Earlier in my artistry, I would have never saw myself doing something like that, especially around this time. But it was a fresh new challenge for me, so I was up for it. I got practice with Sprocket Mural Works, and they got me to help with the project on the Mulberry Street Bridge, where there had been a mural there before, but we had since it got removed, we had chose to put a mural back there that had just as much vibrant color as the one before it. So it was a smaller scale than in our usual murals, but I did two portraits on that mural, and we finished the bridge in the course of a week. And then from then I hopped on the Tuskegee Airmen theme mural on 6th and Maclay. And that took about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I think. But it was just I think the process is really rigorous, but from an artist standpoint, it's intimate as well because you're up close. You're spending all these hours on one piece, and then on top of that, you have the whole community as your audience. So it's like the one thing that I saw a lot of was people coming up to me and just giving me their blessings, their comments, their positivity. You don't see a lot of that in the community, though. So to be a part of something that allows the community to engage, it was real different from me. I'm used to creating in my home, in the comfort of my own home, with some Erica Badu playing, and to take that to a larger scale and to be outside and in front of so many eyes. Um, I thought I would be nervous, but it was just like a smooth transition. So with that, it was just all about pacing myself, just spending a couple hours a day, making sure I wasn't out there too long. When the sun goes down, it changes the whole picture. So there were times where I was out there at night with the light on, just applying color to the image I had been working on all day. So I had to give my eyes a rest because by the time the sun came up again, the picture would look completely different than what I thought it looked like at night.
So how is it? I mean, if you get a stick figure out of me in terms of drawing, as I said to you earlier,
Yeah.
you're doing well in terms of the level of my
Yeah.
skills with drawing. How so you go from what type of work do you do in your house in terms of the small scale? When you're saying small scale,
Mhm.
were you doing at home 5x7s, 10 by? I mean, what like?
I think that's the thing that led me to doing murals in the first place. I started doing canvas art right after I graduated from Shippensburg University, and ironically enough, painting was the only class that I didn't take. I don't know why, but all the painting that I did do was in leisure. Um, so around like 2012, 2013, that's when I made my first few canvas works. It started at 16 by 20s. And then I just started up in the size of it. 2018, that's when I had my first professional art show, and I on the canvases for that were like 30 by 40. So I just upped the scale because one, I had so much to put on canvas, and it's hard to do that on a small scale, you know. So I think it was just my calling to actually just keep increasing the size of my canvas. So the mural, it definitely got me to that point. Biggest challenge I got so far.
So what goes into it? I mean, of course,
Mhm.
so your background, your college, your well, let's take it back even before that.
Mhm.
When did you figure out that this is something that yes, you enjoy, yes, you could do it, but
Yeah.
that you could do for others as well as yourself in
Mhm.
terms of enjoyment? Because you, whether you know it or not, I mean, you've inspired a community,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you've gotten the compliments, which we'll get to that as
Yeah.
well. But what reinvigorates you every day to go out, or when you found your purpose? Let's go
Mhm.
back to that.
Yeah.
When you found your purpose, and I'm assuming it's art in the
Yeah.
arts. How old were you? What helped you get to that point, or when did you know it was it?
Yeah. So art has always been by my side since for as long as I can remember. It was just a means of me to express myself. And throughout the years, that's all it had been. I had never thought to take it on a career type of scale. Only because, with being in school, from elementary school to middle school to high school, I was all about academics. So uh the more I was about academics, the more there were expectations projected onto me.
Okay.
Like, you got to take on one of the career paths that are like more serious, like doctor, lawyer, anything of that nature. So I gravitated to those career paths, as a possible step for me. But even through that, I kept art with
Something kept
me.
pulling you.
Yeah, man, like, I don't know, so the longer I started, creating and sharing what I created with the rest of the world, the more people were, sharing their opinions about my work, and, I was getting a lot of positive feedback on it and everything like that. So, uh, over the course of the years, especially in high school, it got realer because I was getting towards that senior year, and then around that time, everybody's asking, "Well, what are you gonna do? What are you going to do?" And I'm like, I want to do, like, I'm thinking I'm made for this, but at the same time, like, when it comes to something I'm called to do, it was create. And, even in school, I went to Sci Tech High. So, other than CASA, there weren't any classes within high school that were like hands-on art classes other than graphic design. So that's where I picked up a skill in graphic design. But other than that, it was just reaffirming my purpose individually, before I started to let other people's expectations or opinions about me define who I was. And then over time, art just became a means of me loving on myself. And then people naturally see, how I love on myself, and they gravitate to that type of energy. So they want me to, contribute that type of love for myself to a community of people who need to learn how to do that as well.
And that's the key. So we're gonna take a quick commercial
Okay.
break. And on the other side is I want you to continue to expound upon that piece. Being a young brother,
Mhm.
understanding varying career pathways that are out there, understanding
Yeah.
the community in which you're being brought up in, and oftentimes the arts is not what's pushed.
Yeah.
However, as you said earlier, you knew what your calling was,
Mhm.
and independent of what was going on,
Yeah.
you gravitated to thy own self. You were true, and so we'll leave it at that. So we'll come back, continue to have a conversation with Bryan King Prolifik Hickman on the other side of this commercial. Thank you and welcome back as we sit and continue our conversation with Bryan King Prolifik Hickman. We were talking earlier about, basically your roots in this community, coming up through SciTech and then matriculating on to Shippensburg University. And so we wanted to continue to talk about, and then also simultaneously inspiring those younger viewers or younger artists that are out there, who might be considered like much like yourself.
Yeah.
You get the great grades. You're on a trajectory that other people have set for you. However, you know there's something innately in you that's pushing you or pulling you a certain another direction,
Mhm.
just as positive and more fulfilling.
Yeah.
So, what was that like for you? As you said earlier during the break, you got a story to tell. So, lead us
Yeah,
up to that
man.
story.
Ah, man. So, like I said, my focus in arts during high school, as far as painting went, was outside of school, and then in school, graphic design was like my newfound like love. So, when it came to pursuing a career after high school, um, graphic design seemed like the most feasible. So, when I went to ship, that's the major I declared, was, I went for my Bachelor of Arts with a concentration in graphics. But while I was there, I would be taking every art class under the sun. And like I said, painting was just one I just stayed away from. I still don't know why. But it was Shippensburg being a like predominantly white campus, when I was there, it was like a culture shock for me. So um it was even more so like that in the art department.
Mm,
So my as soon as I stepped on campus, I'm getting emails like, "Oh yeah, we're having a freshman portfolio review," and I'm like, "What is that?" So they're like, all the freshmen have to gather all their best work from high school, sculptures, paintings, etc., and present them in the gallery of the campus. So all of the art professors can critique you just to see if you're serious about being an art major and to see if you can handle being critiqued.
right.
So I'm in the gallery and everything, and then the professors are circulating around. Um, the girl next to me, she had sculptures that she had made out of aluminum, just scrap metal. She had made peacocks out of them, and I'm like, I'm sitting here with t-shirts that I painted on back in high school, so I'm like intimidated by everything that I see around me. They get to her, they just tear her down. They're like, we hate it, and everybody's jaw drop.
Mhm.
Then they look at me, and I'm like, oh my god. So they actually tell me that like my artwork was genius, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I
Mhm.
had Rick Ross's face painted on one of the t-shirts.
Uh-huh.
So one of the head professors pointed at that shirt, was like, I've never seen art like used so practically, where you can use clothing as a canvas.
Mm,
I didn't like, being from Harrisburg, there were artists that I looked up to that were working out of Sneaker Villa
right.
airbrushing shirts, so that was common for me. But
Mhm.
I didn't think that, taking that culture and putting it in front of the eyes of someone who didn't know what that was
Mhm.
would deem it as a genius craft.
Mhm.
And that, I think that was the point that made me take myself more seriously as an artist, because I'm like, well, who's to say what I create isn't of value?
Right.
I have to be the one that say that first. So
So let me ask you
yeah,
this: what if it was reversed and the aluminum peacock was highlighted,
yeah.
and the T-shirt canvassing was put down? How would that?
I think it would have worked out the same way.
Okay.
But I think it would have made me hungrier,
Okay.
to
All right.
prove them wrong.
There you
You
go.
know,
Okay.
being the only black person in the room at that time, I already thought that's how it was gonna go.
Gotcha.
So the fact that it didn't pan out like that, I'm like, okay, well, since they already put me up here, let me keep proving that I deserve to be up
Right.
here. So if it would have been like, oh, what are you doing in here? I would have been like, well,
Let me
let me,
tear it up.
yeah,
Get 'em-
absolutely. So that's pretty
Cougar
much how it
pride.
went. Absolutely. Black and I did have a cougar shirt too. I had painted
All right.
with the matching Air Forces too. I don't even know where they went, but yeah. But I mean, experiences like that, especially out through college, helped shape me as an artist too, because I had to get used to that process of being critiqued. Not everybody's gonna like what I create.
Right.
Um, but I have to create regardless. I have to put forth that type of energy where it's like unapologetic.
Mhm.
So that goes hand in hand with who I am. So the more I pour into myself, the more I can pour into my art.
So how much? Let me ask you this: understanding, and I'm not the art, so I'm asking honestly. So how much of your work is done for you
Yeah.
in terms of trusting your creativity and knowing, as we said earlier,
Mhm.
that you're pouring into yourself, and
Yeah.
I think artists sometimes get a bad rap, in terms of, they're just different, and indifferent isn't a
Yeah.
bad thing, but they get sometimes a bad rap for not
Absolutely.
following the path, and then
Absolutely.
we say be an individual,
Mm-hmm.
but when you're so much into being an individual, it's like, oh, they're straying a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying all that to say, how much do you pour in when you're doing a piece of work of yourself as opposed to for the customer?
Yeah. It's
Is the
evolved.
balance? How's that go?
It's definitely fluctuated over time. Around 2015, most of my online following came from doing stuff that I knew that the public would like.
Okay.
So one of the things was whenever there was like a meme that went popular,
Mm,
my first instinct was as soon as it went popular, I'm painting it on something.
gotcha.
So that's how I got a lot of my popularity on like Instagram and everything like that. So over time, I got bored with it only because that became something people expected of me. And while it's something I still love to do because I love seeing people's reactions, um, doing getting back to doing stuff that I love to do is definitely important because it's the way that I love on myself.
Mhm.
Um, so when it comes to like doing commission work, um, I think it's more so me trying to balance out the other person's vision
Mm,
while still trying to maintain my individuality through the process as well. I know there's people out there like one thing creatives get a lot is like people messaging you with pictures of other artists' work and saying, "Can you do this?"
mm,
And I'm really like that's a big pet peeve of mine because I try to stray away from doing that. I don't want to like recreate somebody else's work because I want another creative doing that to
gotcha.
me.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, like I respect that there's like a lot of people that feel like they don't know what they want until they see it.
Okay.
So I'm one of those people that have the duty of like doing that. So that's why I try to carve away as much time for myself to, um, sketch ideas down and bring them out in a timely fashion so that I'm like saving time for myself, but also saving time to do things for other people as
Mm.
well.
So when there's themes out there, like things that are going on, like we, of course, the Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
living in two Americas is a theme that we continuously run with,
Hmm.
here on the podcast and in the studio overall. But when there are themes out there or something that's burning in you, and you just start putting, things down,
Yeah.
you're going off for you,
Absolutely.
and you're going to put this out there, and if you like it, come get it. If not, somebody else will.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So what has been something that, we'll just say, in your last, the murals don't count.
Okay.
Those are ours.
Okay.
For you, what are some, let's say, two pieces that you've done
Yeah.
that you would like highlighted, that you've poured into, basically, because of something that was going on in the community,
Mhm.
or globally for
Yeah.
that matter? What are some pieces that you like to highlight?
Man, I
You only
will
get
tell
two.
you. Okay, that's fine. I got one that definitely has a lot of traction. There was a hat that I had painted on that said it was basically a clone of the Make America Great Again hat.
Mm,
But I took the hat, I took a plain red hat and painted the words "Make America Great Again," but I slashed out the words "Great" and "Again," and then I wrote "Arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor."
mm,
So I did that maybe like a month after that happened,
mhm,
and it gained so much traction. But at the same time, there were people that took it the wrong way. They thought I was just making a mockery out of someone who had passed. So naturally, I'm like listening to my community. I'm like, okay, well, if this is a red flag, then let me not make it for sale. But I kept the post up of the picture of the hat, um, just to keep my statement out
mhm.
there. Because we all felt very strongly about
Right,
that happening.
right.
Months later, I see LeBron James wearing that same hat in my handwriting.
Oh.
Yeah, so someone had ended up taking the image of my hat and like making it embroidered
Mm.
on that hat. So it was like I had all my followers just like Prolific's the one that did that. He's the originator. So that was just like one that got away that I feel like if I could rewind time, I would definitely would have stood more firmly on it. It was just um
So were you getting the blowback from us in terms of a community, black people, or
yeah.
was it? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, like everybody. It's just to log on Instagram, or any social site and to see. It was mainly on Twitter and Instagram. Like I
Okay.
just logged on and I just saw all these like negative comments, and
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's not what I meant by this.
Right.
Not it is what the phrase said.
Mhm.
So it was a complete 180 when LeBron was wearing it and the
Right.
rest of the Lakers were wearing the hat.
Right.
They was just like, "Oh, this is so profound. This is a big statement." I'm like, somebody tell LeBron what
You're right
time
there.
it is. But
So what did that teach you?
just to stand firm on what
Mhm.
I believe. You know, when I feel strongly about something and I put it out in an artistic fashion, I have to go back to what I learned in college. You know, not everybody's gonna rock with what you do. I just wasn't prepared at the time to
I
like
respect that.
take that wave of like comments like that.
It
You
comes,
know,
especially during that time.
woo, it knocked the wind. Like I turned my phone off for a good 48 hours just to duck all that madness. But
Yeah.
you know, it just taught me how to be more unapologetic with what I do. Like if I know what my intent
Exactly.
behind something is, that's all that matters.
And then, just food for thought going forward,
Mhm.
you know, that those that blowback and all that, you don't have to respond right away,
True.
but
True.
that's an audience as well.
Yeah, it is.
That
It
gives you an
is.
opportunity now for those of you who had a concern. Here's
Mhm.
what I meant, and now you
Exactly.
can answer them on a whole different,
Absolutely.
scale. So, we live and we learn. As they
Yeah,
say, learning is a lifelong
for
process. We're
sure.
all living, so we're learning day by day.
I
So
like
yeah,
that.
and you can have that one. It's
Thank
not
you. I
even.
appreciate.
Yeah, I won't
I'll
even.
put it on the
Like
hat for.
and then we know where it originated from you. On the hat.
Absolutely.
So that's one piece.
That's one piece. Yeah.
Some others.
There's a one that I did recently. At time
What do
was
you read? All right, that's there you go.
I've been reading like cultural books, like the history of African civilization is one that I'm on right now. Other than self-help books that I've been reading for my own personal
Right.
reasons, I've been trying to dive more into my culture and heritage, just to learn more about where I come from and see like the parallels between African culture and African American culture
Mhm.
and try to like use my art to bridge that gap.
Right.
I have a book that is entitled the Adinkra Symbol Encyclopedia,
Mm.
which is a combination or an amalgamation of all the Adinkra symbols in African culture made by the Akan. And each symbol has a metaphysical and literal translation behind it. So, in order to push my art more, I'm trying to pour more depth into what I do. So, I'm making pieces that are dedicated to these symbols. So one symbol I'll cut down its meaning, learn about what it represents, learn the history about it, and then actually bring it out and define it in art form.
Okay.
So there's one piece that I did recently about a symbol called Iban, EBAN,
Okay.
and that symbol means family. That means unity. The literal translation is a house with a fence around it means it's an ideal home.
Mhm.
Um, and then it also means fence. So I made a piece with a black couple in unison in unity, just
Mhm.
embracing each other, and there's a fence around them. There's a lot more details that go into it, but it was like the first piece that I've done in a while that just represents the black family,
Mhm.
and then also it just has so much depth to it. Like every part of it, it just I can explain it. I can go into a whole explanation to it. So the fact that I can pour what I learn into what I do for a living, like, the first flex that you want to do after reading a book is share your knowledge with
Mhm.
somebody. So if I could share that through painting, like,
Mhm.
oh man, it's no better feeling for me.
Okay. All right, we'll take another commercial break, and on the other side, we'll continue our conversation with Bryan, King Prolific Hickman. Okay, and welcome back as we continue our conversation. Uh, we were talking about art form,
Yeah.
learning more about uh, our culture, and more importantly, our heritage. And so it doesn't escape our eye, in terms of the jewelry, in
Yes.
terms of the pieces.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the wearing of the pieces and what they symbolize and or why they attracted you.
So, as I said, I've been researching a lot more about African culture. So, like I said, the biggest thing, the biggest way we can flex our knowledge, through what we read is through expression. So, it just over time, like I gravitated to like wearing everything. Like I've been learning about stones and crystals and the energy I gather from them, the jewelry, what that represents, everything. So, I feel like it's a way to show appreciation for my roots.
Mm.
At the same time, being unapologetic about my image as well. Being loud. Redefining what it means to be presentable.
Mhm.
We're in a time where we're just putting more emphasis on individuality and making sure that people aren't shamed for the way they choose to dress or the way they choose to carry themselves, as long as they're not doing it at the expense of anybody
Right.
else. So that's one thing I do.
Yeah. So talk about the necklace. Yeah, we were asking earlier. We were
Yeah,
talking about.
man. So
We're trying to get that, by the way.
oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Shout out to my brother Warren Cobb. On he's available on Facebook, Warren Cobb, Level Up Art. He definitely custom made this beautiful piece for me. This African mask came straight from Africa. The piece on his forehead, like I was saying, is an Adinkra symbol, and actually have it tattooed on my wrist. It's entitled Jenyame, so it means God is in control.
Mhm.
And the metaphysical meaning behind that is that we should carry God in everything that we do.
Mhm.
Um, and then the pieces are just different stones that, some of them I've actually wrapped in copper wire myself, and the others, my homie Warren definitely gave me a few pieces. One in particular is my favorite. This is a pyramid piece. The crystal is known as shungite, and I wear this whenever I'm like trying to be creative or just restore my creativity or just to calm my anxiety down at all. But yeah, it's just a form of me flexing what I know, what I've learned. And it's even more so when you can wear something that isn't just a fashion statement, something that you can give a history lesson in the process for.
Right.
You know.
And I'm sure So I'll be curious if you went back to Shippensburg to those
I
to the
have.
professors,
Yeah.
that critiqued your piece
Yeah.
and wonder, especially in this time that
Hmm.
we're living in currently, with his or her
Yeah.
expressions were, or how have you been received now? Are you invited back to speak to others to inspire maybe more uh, people,
Yeah.
black people in
Yeah.
general, to get involved with the arts at Shippensburg in particular, since you're an alumni?
I actually went back like 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
They I don't somebody on their committee or I forget what the office is called, but I just get a message from them. They're like, "Hey, we saw that you're alumni, and then we heard that you do these paintings with fire. Um, could you come back to campus and do
That
something
was cool.
for
I
us?"
saw some of those. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
was. Yeah.
so I was asked to come back on campus, and I'm like, wow, like out of all the art majors y'all got, like y'all, just reached to an alumni to do something, that I love to do. That was It was definitely a humbling thing to have happen to me. Like I've always said that I wanted that to happen even
Mhm.
after leaving Shippensburg because one thing about being a black art major, or one of the only black art majors, is that when it came to turning our projects in or doing anything of that nature, the process was we on due date we would sit our project or our assignment in the middle of the class, and everyone would get to comment
Mhm.
on it and critique
Right.
it. Then from there, we would take those comments and either change it or keep it the same, and then turn it in for a final grade. Um, the biggest problem that I had was, it was just a personal thing, was being the only black person in the classroom. A lot of my art classes, it just it scared me a little because I didn't know how they were going to perceive my art. So a lot of my projects were me trying to tailor what I do to something I felt like they could understand. So a lot of my individuality was shadowed or bottled up until, I graduated, or if it was anything that I expressed myself fully and it was outside of class. And I wish I would have been, more expressive in that manner, but I learned so much in the art department while I was there. And, it's definitely enabled me to be more expressive in how I choose to create
You
things now.
bottled it up then, but you like, not anymore.
Man,
It's wide open now.
y'all gonna get the loudest version of me from here on out. I'm telling you.
But some of that, when you're in certain, hey, I'm Clarion grad,
Yeah.
and I didn't do a whole bunch of my English and reading papers on, on Bobby Seale, though we brought him to campus.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, there were certain, you're aware of your surroundings, and
Absolutely.
so, now look what we got.
Yeah, I know.
So they might have taken what you did back then and stolen it, and somebody else might have.
That's true.
Yeah,
That's true.
So,
yeah, you never
such
know.
as the hat, LeBron. But yeah, so for me, if there are young people out here now looking at you, right now, from Harrisburg, from Central Dauphin, from wherever, schools might be, from California, or wherever, globally. What are some of the things that you would like to impart on them as you continue to grow up at the ripe age of 31?
Yes.
What are some of the things you like to impart on them?
Without sounding too cliche, I would say repetition is definitely going to sharpen the sword with whatever you do. If you're hesitant about jumping into something new, just say whatever and do it anyway. Even if you fail at it, it'll at least lead you to something better, or at least motivate you to try it again and do it better the second time. Um, Keep confidence by your side at all times. Whatever you bring to life, do it with the fullest intent that you have in your spirit. You know, you can't afford to live this life trying to be something you're not, or trying to shrink um, just for the sake of someone else's approval. So I would definitely make sure you're living your most authentic self. If you have a support group around you, if you have a team around you, if you have friends around you, um, whose comments or whose energy uh, causes you to shrink or causes you to try to keep the best qualities about yourself private, find a different team or move solo until the right energies gravitate towards you. That's one of the biggest things I learned. I have tons of different circles that are overly acceptive of me, not only accepting of me, but they give me space to be my most authentic self. And now it's at the point where they expect nothing but the most loudest version of myself. And then finally, know when to work, know when to rest. Rest is just as important as work. There's definitely a big misconception amongst people who are successful that you don't need to rest, that you need to have sleepless nights. The sleepless nights will come, but they'll come when you don't know. There's no like, oh yeah, I gotta like make sure I'm not sleeping in order to make something happen. No, your best sleepless nights will come when you're most excited to bring something out. Like I've had art projects that I'm like, sleep's gonna have to wait because I just want the world to see this. Those are the sleepless nights that are gonna help you. Anything else, just make sure you're resting in between work. And then, just make sure your authentic self is not coming at the expense of anybody else's well-being as well. Do your best to empower people who look up to you or people who are around you who you see could use that type of positive energy. Do so in a manner that you're not overexerting yourself. You know what I mean? You can feed people good energy without exhausting your own energy as well. So make sure you're doing that as well. I think
So let
that's
me
it.
add, yeah, no, hey, spot on. Let me say, and at 31, I'm sure, yeah.
Hey.
So I would typically say who, but I'm gonna change this, and just because I mean you're doing so much, in terms of pouring into a community.
Mhm.
So I have to use the what.
Okay.
And so the what is what inspires you and why?
That's a good question.
Take your time.
Life definitely inspires me because inspiration is everywhere. So there's no time that I wake up, and in between the time I wake up and go to sleep, that I'm not inspired by at least one thing. Um, you know, uh I would say the experiences that you get are moments that life hands you for a reason. So there's a lesson in everything that you experience. No matter how little it is, no matter how big it is, there's some piece of knowledge, at least 1% of knowledge you can extract from anything that you interact with on this earth. So yeah, I would say life.
Do you look to? I know we were talking earlier
Mhm.
that people don't bring pieces to you. Shouldn't bring pieces to an artist, not only you,
Yeah.
because you don't want to duplicate.
Yeah.
But or is there some individuals that you look at or past
Yeah.
pieces that you look at and you say, "Whoa!" Like just that's something.
One person who was a good inspiration for me around high school, John, uh, inspiration for me. He worked at the sneaker villa right down the street from Sci Tech, and he was painting on shoes and everything. He was someone I aspired to be like around that time because he was doing a lot of stuff that was like getting a lot of attention. So and he was just so free giving with his knowledge. A lot of people who are at a certain level are kind of like reserve
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
their information on reserve. So, but
Mhm.
no, he was just like, look, this is my plug for the paint. Tell him John sent you. I'm like, okay, thanks. But yeah, he was like one of the first people that I met were that made it out of Harrisburg, or just traveled abroad,
Mm.
that wasn't an athlete or wasn't of the typical career path that I thought I had to be. What I mean? He made it look more feasible.
Okay.
So
So if people want to find your work,
yeah.
how do they get in touch with you, or how do they commission you to do work, or
My commissions, you could best reach me at my email, which is kingprolific.inquiries@gmail.com. And then other than that, it's at King Prolific on every social platform, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that. It's the same at.
Well, I can't thank you enough, for coming in. We were definitely excited about having you.
Man, look.
As a young person in particular, with as much as going on in our
Yeah.
communities, to be able to, go to one of our younger individuals that is offering so much inspiration and pride, not only for Harrisburg City, but people are seeing that, you're on 6th Street, you're on Foster Street, you're on, the Marlborough Street Bridge.
Yeah.
Those are major corridors,
Yeah.
through the capital city.
Mhm.
And so we all know that it's just bigger and better opportunities for you out there. If anything we could do to help, illuminate the body of work that you're doing
Yeah.
in terms of, putting it out there on through multimedia, Music Man Multimedia Studios. We're here for you. If there's other individuals that you like to bring back, you're more than welcome. Back again. It's your first time, definitely can't be your last. Because I'm sure you're gonna be doing some more inspirational work as you continue to matriculate. So
I
proud of
appreciate
you.
you, man.
We appreciate you. And yeah, again, thank you. If there's any parting words that you'd like to share with the audience.
Peace, Ashe, and that's it.
All right. And thank you to our audience for joining us for another episode of A Seat at the Table. Shout out to the control room, the Lewis brothers, Conrad and Craig, and of course, Chad Scott. See you next time.